Hi, hello. Welcome to this video. I'm Felman Garcia. Thank you for watching this video. The purpose of this video is to discuss the advantages of using array and its implications. Our scenario is to create a Java program that uses array to store 10 student information and compare to another Java program in the same scenario but without using an array. By the end of this video, you will have a clear understanding about the importance of using an array. Alright, let's get started. The IDE that I'm going to use to run a Java program is Visual Studio Code. Let us first create a program without using an array, then the next program is with array. Take note that this program is not using an array. Inside the Visual Studio IDE, our first step is to create a class named student.java. From here, we will define our fields such as name, age, GPA, and grade level. The data type of the field name is string. For the age, it's integer. For the GPA, is double. And for the grade level, is string. Next, we will define a constructor with parameters to initialize our student object. The parameters are string name, integer age, double GPA, and string level. As you can see, the parameters are same with our fields. To initialize our student object, we will assign each of our parameters to each fields. To do that, we will use this dot name is equal to name. This dot age is equal to age. The variable on the right side came from our constructor parameters. Next will be this dot GPA is equal to GPA. This dot level is equal to level. Now our constructor is finished. Next, we will create a method that will display student information that we are going to enter. To do that, we will use a public void, and the name of our method is display details. And with the use of system out println, we can display the string such as name concatenated with our field name. Next is age, and we will get the variable age. Next is the GPA, and we will get the field GPA. And grade level. And in the field for this is level. So the purpose of this method is to display whatever we type in the name, in the age, in GPA, and grade level in our next program. To be able to have a space for each record, we will put a system that out that print line. Then save. After we accomplish all of these, we will create another class named studentlist.java. This file will serve as our main method. Also, we will perform here our input process, iteration, and method calling to display the student information that we have entered. So let's get started. So we will create our main method, public static void main argument. Here we will do our input process. Let's say input name, next input age, GPA, and grade level. Next, how we can input, we are going to use a library so that we can get an input from a user. So that library is our java.utility or .util.scanner. So we will use that by inputting import java.util.scanner. So using this library, we can able to get an input from a user. So but we have to instantiate the scanner class. So to do that, scanner, then let's say the name of our scanner is input is equal to new scanner system.in means for input. After that, we will use the variable input that we are instantiated, input that next line for a string. But before that, we need to create a variable to hold the input for the name. Next, age is integer, age is equal to input dot next int for an integer input. Next, GPA is a double data type, so we will do like double GPA is equal to input dot next double. And last, Grade level is a string. String, let's say level is equal to input next line. Okay? Then to be able to close scanner for inputting, we will close our scanner by entering this code. Input dot close. Okay. Now that we are done in the input process, let's perform the iteration process to be able to get 10 student information from the user. The iteration that we will use is the do while loop. Let's perform the do while loop. While our variable, let's say y less than to 10, because we are going to get 10 inputs from the user. So let's declare y as integer with assigned value equal to 0. Then to make a loop, let's put y plus plus. Let's get this code, put it inside the do while loop. Okay, then next, let's put some information here so that we can get what index number we are. Let's say system.out.println, enter the to get the index, we will put here y plus 1, because y is start with 0. So to be able to get start with 1, let's put plus 1. Next is to call the display method to display our inputted student information. To call the display method from the student class, use the class student to instantiate an object. Let's say student equal to student class. Student, our object, let's say student is equal to new student. Then we will put our variables here, name, age, GPA, and level. Then to call the method display details, we're going to use our student object, student dot display details. Now we're done. So all we have to do now is to test our program to see how it works. To run our program, press F5 function. Now let's input name, age, GPA, and grade level. After our first input, as you notice, the student details immediately displayed because our display method was inside our do while loop. We have to do that because this program doesn't have an array to store data in the memory of this computer. That is one of the disadvantages of not using an array in your program. Without data being stored, you have nothing to retrieve, you have nothing to collect and display. Without arrays in programming, implications to the design, efficiency, usability of programming and software development would be huge. Arrays are foundation of the data structures, and their lack would mean everything from performance to program logics. Here are a few implications of this. Number one, inefficient data storage and access. Number two, loss of simple and compact syntax. Number three, implementation of algorithms is challenging. Number four, impact on high performance computing. Number five, complexity in handling multidimensional data. Number six, increased complexity in dynamic memory allocation. Number seven, impact on language design. Number eight, limited applicability to modern applications. And number nine, educational challenges. Let's finish this. Now that we are finished in our program but without using an array, next, I am going to create a program that uses an array so that we can identify the advantages of an array in programming. But before that, let us define what is an array. An array is a fundamental data structure in programming that stores a collection of elements, and it allows you to manipulate values of the same data type, such as integers, floating point number, character, or strings, as a single unit stored adjacent in the memory location. What is the advantages of an array? Number one advantage is efficient data storage. Arrays store multiple values in a single block of memory, reducing memory overhead. Number two, fast access. Arrays enable fast access to individual elements using their indices. Number three, easy iteration. Arrays can be easily iterated over using loops, making it simple to perform operations on all elements. Now that we know what is an array, its advantages and implications, let us now use array to take the advantages of it in programming. Let us now do the program that uses an array. Since we already have our student class that contains our fields and display method, we will just create another Java file that contains an array operation. The name of that file is studentdata.java. We will just use or reuse our student class in doing array operation. Now, the same thing in our first program, we will do the input process, iteration process, and calling the display method. But in this case, we will add the implementation of array. So the first step is to create our main method. Next, we will set up our inputs, but since we already made it, we will just copy it from our previous program about the input process. Copy, and then we will transfer that to our new file, student data. So still, we still use the scanner for our input process, but we are going to remove the do loop or do while iteration. Next is the implementation of array. To do that, let us use our class student because our fields are there. So, student followed by an open and close square bracket beside of our class student. This means that we are creating or implementing an array. Next, think of a name for your object to be instantiated by our student class. Let's say students object. Students object. To instantiate the students object, let's equal it to the class student. Equal new student. Then followed by open and close bracket beside of it. Then let us put the size of our array. In our case, the size of our array is 10 because we are going to input 10 student information that we will store to our array. Next, we will do the iteration process. We are going to use the for loop instead of the do while loop. This is to simulate our 10 inputs from the user. This is how. For, then let's create a variable. For example, it's y, start with 0 or begin with 0, then y less than to the size or to the length of our array. So students dot length. Then to increment our loop, let's put y plus plus. So we will put begin and end. And then let's get this input process to be inside our for loop operation. Now we're done. Next, let us assign or store to our array every student information that we have inputted. To do that, we will use our students object with open and close bracket. Inside of it is our y that represents our index number. What does that mean? Whenever our for statement loops, we have to assign or store data in the array in that particular index or location. Next, let's equal this to the new student class. Equal new student class and pass our variables that contains data of each student. These are name, age, GPA, and level. Now that we are done in implementing array and we've been able to store 10 students information, let us now retrieve those data from the array and display. To do that, we have to use the for each loop to extract the data from the array and display. Here is the syntax for each. For student, our class wherein all our fields are located. Student is our object that we're going to instantiate. Then we are going to put here the name of our array. Now, to display and call our display details, we are going to use our student object to call our display details method. Now, we are done. But let us put title for every record for our presentation. System.out print line. Let's say the title is student information. Okay. Now we are good. We can now run our program to see how it works. Let us press F5 so that we can enter student information. So let's make our first input. If you remember, in our first program, wherein we don't use an array, the scenario is after our first input for first student details, immediately we need to display the student information. Why we are going to do that? Because we did not save or store that to the array. Also, we cannot call our display details method outside our do while loop statement, because if we do that, it will only display the last student details that you have inputted. With or without loop statement, because it only overwrite your first input. Here in our second program, with array implementation, our first data was stored in the array. As we continue inputting for the next student, up to the number 10 student, all data that we inputted for every student was stored in our array. So let us complete our inputs. This is now the output of our program using an array. As you can see, this is student number 1, student number 2, student number 3, so on, and so all the data are retrieved from our array and we can be able to display it on the screen. But how about we want to manipulate our array? For example, we just want to display a specific record using its index. Let's do this, and here is the implementation. For in y is equal to 0, y less than 2, students dot length. Then increment our y. So after that, we will make a condition. If y is equal to 1, so which means if our y is equal to index 1, wherein index 1 is our, in this scenario, we want to display record that belongs to index 1. So students 1 dot display details. After that, we are going to break our loop. But before we run this, let's comment this out. Oops. Okay, save, then run our program. Okay, let's see the output. Okay, again, we will fill the records. Number 2, number 3, so on and so forth up to record number 10. Now that we are in record number 10, let's see what is the output after this. There you go. So as you can see, the only display is student information with name Jonah. So which means this record is in record or in index number 1. Now that we learned on how to use array and we compared it to the program without using an array, we can now see the advantages or benefits of using an advantageous. While arrays are advantageous, it's important to keep in mind its limitations, such as fixed size and the need for manual resizing in dynamic context. Balancing the use of arrays with other data structures can help achieve optimal performance and flexibility in programming. I hope you understand how to use an array in programming. Thanks for watching.